やっほー、掃除終わりました。Mrs. Cooling.
For 5 years, and yeah, getting a meditation and living in such a chill environment helped. Coming back to New York is an interesting experience for me.
You really perceive a lot of differences between those two places, huh?
They're like night and day.
Scott, I want to turn to another point that you've drawn from your 11 years of hosting the psychology podcast that is, I know, very near and dear to your heart, which is creativity. And this idea that creativity is a really vital dimension of human flourishing. And it's been such a consistent thread in your work, and your thinking, and I wonder why, if you could talk a little bit about why you feel creativity is so important and so valuable.
I think creativity is everything. To be able to bring into existence things that have not existed before is we do that automatically just by existing. And I think to be alive is a creative experience. And what Freud said, love and work and love are the cornerstones of humanness. I think I don't think work is a cornerstone of humanness. I think creativity is. I think it's if I may modify Freud, it's love and creativity.
掃除終わりました。
Feeling love for activity you're doing or for a human. But really having that sense of aliveness usually is correlated with a sense of you're creating things of value in the world.
What I like about your approach to creativity is that you don't seem to feel that it's restricted to, artists or writers or musicians, that all of us humans are creative in a sense. You agree with that?
Yes, I don't think creativity is limited to a particular field of study. There might be some fields where we don't want intense creativity, like pilots, or accountants. But nevertheless, if we think of creativity as divergent thinking and the ability to come up with lots of solutions to a problem, maybe we do want that everywhere. We want the potential, the ability for divergent thinking, not just convergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with one answer. And also,
Welcome to my house. 何してんすかみんな。さっき途中で充電切れてライブ配信止まっちゃってました。その間に集中して全部掃除してゴミ全部捨ててゴミ全部捨てて軽く玄関も掃除して次まだキッチンと風呂掃除しないともういつでも退去できる状態にしておきます。引っ越したいです。次どこに引っ越そうかな。池袋引っ越そうかな。池袋に引っ越そうか迷ってます。池袋か。
Well, I think that's one of the great things about or figuring out
Yeah.
how to talk to your guests and then
気持ちいい。
eventually settle into
掃除すると気持ちいい。
a pattern or
最高。
a practice that at first you do.
邪気を追い払ったって感じがするというか、
It's not like I went to a podcast
いいです。
and there weren't that
気
many
持
other
ちいいで
examples
す。
out there.
掃除が終わった後は気持ちがいいです。
Myself, my quirky, self,
掃除最高。
and authentic, really mattered to me.
さあ、これでお仕事もはかどるか。
If I may speak,
今日からやべえぞ。
I felt like I didn't have for it. I felt like it suited me,
Yeah.
to get out of the laboratory and have conversations, show my enthusiasm for science. I love being a public science communicator, and many years commented on my podcast. I wrote a popular blog at Scientific American, Psychology Today at first, and then Scientific American. So it all kind of ended. It was a really nice period of my life.
Yeah, I think it's always been apparent that you were enjoying yourself. You were very interested and engaged and eager to talk to these people. It's always one reason that I've been enjoying it.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So another point that you make about that you pulled out across posting the psychology podcast is that emotional intelligence, vulnerability, and having self-compassion for the dark side is important. And I would love to hear you talk about the dark side. I know you've done work on, not
てかさ、
the dark
俺が中指立てるといいね押すやつ誰なんだよ。
Saying it right.
いつも。
Try it.
お前気持ち悪いな。
So I'm sort of curious what you might have to say about the dark side. Why having self-compassion for our dark side is.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of research in both the light triad and the dark triad. In order to validate our light triad, we had to do a lot of research on the dark triad.
Yeah.
And I think that the point there is that you often see goodness in contrast to the opposite. I don't know if the concept of evil makes a lot of sense or if we can really define it. But in my attempts to see what the light side of personality is,
よし、頑張るぞ。
deep dive into traits such as narcissism, Machiavellianism, and other psychopathy. When I talk about the dark side, we also think about things like just depression or think about anxiety. The field of positive psychology calls them negative emotions. They contrast that with positive emotions such as contentment and joy and happiness. But I don't really like the artificial labeling of certain emotions as negative versus positive. I think that we have emotions that are uncomfortable, we have emotions that are comfortable, or some emotions that are ecstatic. I really talk about the experience and really understand how all these emotions really can be positive in certain contexts. My colleague Ted Cashley and Ron Biswas even wrote a great book together on the upside of your dark side, and Todd was on the early days on my podcast talking about the dancing with the dark side. Was what we titled the episode. And yeah, I really agree with that perspective that being able to, that there are many things we can do to acknowledge, accept, have self-compassion for the sides of ourselves that we may have shame over or that make us feel uncomfortable. There's this idea of the handshake practice with your beautiful monsters, as Sharon Salzberg talked about on the podcast. Very Buddhist concept.
The idea is you shake hands.
Shake
Hands in a cordial way with monsters or demons.
Yeah, you say, I see you. And a lot of these, Richard Schwartz also, Dick Schwartz, on my podcast, we talked about his approach, and there's this idea of, you ask them, what do they want? You know, what kind of role are they trying to play in your inner
いろいろ計画が立てやすくなります。
or in your outer
そ
life
して
as
リ
well.
タイアが近くなってくると、いろいろ計
Either. And Mark Bracken, who's been on a couple times with me, talking about dealing with your feelings and
画くなってくると、いろいろ計画が立てやすくなりま
I
す。
would include as a component of all of this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I may ask, Scott, is what aspect of your dark side have you developed compassion for?
Lots of aspects. I look at
つ
a
まり
lot of my
若い時は
prior
結婚するか
suffering
もわからん、子供何人かも
with a real compassionate lens, and I don't. There are things that it'd be so easy for me to like watch earlier interviews and just cringe, and it'd be easy to do that. It'd be easy to do that. Because there's lots of things I've done that are cringeworthy. And I don't think that's the relationship I want to have with my son. So I think being able to kind of watch versions of me that were in
結婚するかもわからん。
but we're also trying my best with the limited knowledge I had at the time about limited wisdom. We're always limited in our wisdom.
Right.
Is just with a heavy heart and just a lot of
かもわ
love.
からん、子供何人かも。
Like really, I love that quirky guy, and I'm also glad that I've learned a lot of lessons, and I've also been able to, step into new versions of
若い時は結婚するかもわからん、子供
近
何
距離すぎるな。
家買うかもわかんない、そんな状態でなかなか
近すぎる。
今から後って結構皆さん見えてるんです。
that I made was we talked about
だからライフプラン立てやすい。そしてどうやって取り崩しをしていくか。毎月いくらぐらい取り崩しをすれば年金で生活できるか。そういったことをやっぱり立てないといけないんですね。そして最後はもう取り崩しです。ここまでよく考えて貯めて終わりの人が多いんですね。ニーサをしようが健康保険をしようが毎月今3万円ならできそうでやって終わってる。それは何のお金なのかゴールのわからずにやってる方が多いから毎月10万円貯めよう不安が消えない計画性がないどうなるかが見えない。そこはしっかり計画を立てていくともっと明るく楽しくできるかなと。
That means a lot to me. I'm not one of these, I'm not gonna name names, but like one of these these polished
高くなってくるといろいろ計画が立てやすくなります。若い時は結婚するかもわからん、子供何人かもわからん、家買うかもわかんない。
say everything is so perfect. Every hair is always in place perfectly. Everything they say is perfect. Everything they say, their audience, they get a million people being like, "You're a genius that you said something, so banal." But it's like,
そんな状態でな
do you know what I
て
mean?
にくいもの。
I do.
And that's just not me. And I just
そんな
want
状
to be
態
me.
でなそんな状態でな
Yeah.
そんな状態で家買うかもわかんない。
So a sixth point that you pulled out of your 11 years of podcast, Scott, is that relationships, connection, and social context matter and continually shape our minds. So we've been talking a lot about sort of individual traits and states here, but relationships, they're so important. We can talk a little bit about how that theme is played out across your podcast.
Yes. The idea of relationships playing a huge role in our human flourishing and our contentment in life is backed by
そ
so
んな状態でな
much
かなか立てに
research.
くいものが
A
今
lot of
か
people
ら後って結構皆
from
さん
Sonia
見えてきます。
University, who's been on the podcast,
今
to Sharon Salzberg, talking about love and connection and having an open heart. There's just so much exciting research on that. My head's going to. There's so many people who, we had Dan Ryan, who was on recently talking about the neuroscience of social connection. Cassie Kill, who's really talking about the importance of social connections.
始めまし
So
た。
Cassie, is rocking that, and it's been a really big theme, repeating over and over again on this podcast. It's
黄
inescapable.
ばみ。
And it's not just feeling a sense of belonging, but it's also, I like to distinguish between belonging and a sense of belonging and a sense of intimacy or relatedness.
はじめまして。
you and the other person, there's a real
お疲れ様です。
mutual growth on both ends. With belonging, you may feel like you belong to something, a group, an organization, a political, thing, and you go to a meeting and you dissent, or say, I don't think I agree with the party line here, and they say you're out. That's not a relationship. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are obsessed with belonging and they need to belong, but like DEI, belong. I think that not just belonging,
なるほど。
connection matters a lot too.
そういうパターンでね
Would you say that
現れたな。
all the research on the
お
importance
前は本当にいろんなパターン出てくるな。
prioritize relationships and how you spend your time?
Oh yes, I mean for sure. I mean I treasure my friends. I mean of course, and
もう本
there's just nothing better than just getting together with your friends and the type of friend, a friend who accepts all of you, and I do friends like that,
Yeah,
Shout out Jordan Feingold, Dan Werner,
unconditional
Krista Stryker. Yeah, there are people in my life, where just let me be me. They not only that, they admire it. Yeah,
yeah,
and vice versa.
yeah, that's wonderful. Well, this last point that you pulled out is just so Scott, it's such the essence of SBK. And
すぐわかるんだ
so
よ。
I'll read it
Chataro.
here. The ultimate aim of psychological insight is not just to fix problems, but to orient life toward growth, meaning, and connection.
おめえはよ、本当によ。どんだけ暇人なんだよ。
You're both
まあ俺も人のこと言えねえけどさ。
Transcend.
お前よりはまともだ。お前よりはまともな暇人だわ。
Yeah.
マジやべえな。
Yeah, questions of what is a good life have permeated my consciousness for a long time. I really like the humanistic psychology way of thinking about it. They really focus on being, what we're doing, and focus on what really matters. What really matters, what really makes us feel whole and alive, experientially alive, is what the humanistic psychology is really interested in understanding and knowing. And yeah, biblical transcend, I reimagine Maslow's hierarchy of needs from a static pyramid that he never drew to a cell that's dynamic. So, the cell metaphor, often cell metaphor, where you're moving the ocean and the sea of life.
全部が茶太郎に見えてきたんだけど。なんかもうあいつが全部一人で自作自演してるよりしか見えなくなってきたんだけど。このコメント欄。昨日の夜中の茶太郎の自作自演を見ちゃったからな俺。一人で 3,4 アカウントから連絡コメントしてきて、一人でなんか一生懸命やってんの。頭いかれてるでしょ。一生懸命俺にそんなやってさ、何の意味があるんだろうね。そうでしょあれ。まあ全然さ、もういいんだけどさ。いけるよ。笑っちゃうよ俺は。君のその不屈の精神に。意味がわかんないよもう。運動への。
themselves at what they already have within
それが何のお金なのか、ゴールが分からない。
そうもう歌作れんじゃん。
10万円貯めようなんて不安が
other
決めない
people didn't
茶太郎で
Yeah.
どうなるか
誰か茶太郎で曲作ろうぜ。
I think that to enable all people
もうさ大体言うセリフ決まってるからさ。
Yeah, and that has been from your very first. What was Ungifted your first book?
that was my first book for a general audience.
Yeah.
ちょっと AI で茶太郎を表現、茶太郎をちょっと AI で作ってみようか。俺が想像する茶太郎とこのセリフ生きてるのが辛くて死にたいです助けてくださいっていうのを AI でAI で作ってみようか。
Moments that stick out to you, something that a guest said that really is so in your ears, or that you find yourself repeating or remembering. Can you think of any moments that really stand out?
You know, look, after so many episodes, what starts to remain are these threads that we discussed today. I'll be honest.
生き地獄さん最近よく来てくれますね。
As much as we want to think all of us
僕は嬉しいですよ。生き地獄さんみたいなまともな人が来てくれると。
is that really what's most important? It's the fact
茶太郎と絡んでると頭悪くなりそうなんで。
so I would say every single one of my guests over four, you know, I don't want to single out anyone here in this at the end of this episode. I want to make the point that they've all significantly contributed to the canon of truth.
Yes.
And these patterns that we talked about today, I think, are
確かし
you really nailed it.
う
You
ま
know,
い
these seven
間違いない。それ間違いない。
form the clusters.
死ぬ勇気があれば何でもできるよね。確かに。
These are the major themes
それは間違いない。
this podcast has covered that stand out to me as the message that I think taken together from
その精神大事かもしれない。
of 470. Well, I guess this is
一
episode
発逆転狙えるかもしれないよね。
of the Psychology Podcast.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Well, I want to ask you, Scott, about what's next for you, but not necessarily in terms of specific projects. I want to know, what are you excited about? What do you want to find out still? You know, I know there's so much left to be discovered. What are you excited about and thinking about in terms of the future?
Well, one thing is taking my self-actualization coaching program in new directions. We're continuing to train coaches in a 6-month certification program, but I want to branch out into other areas like education, having teachers view themselves as self-actualization coaches and managers. So in the business world, I'm getting increasingly interested in the future of leadership, and particularly human-centered leadership. And I have an edited book under Christian Lee coming out next year on the future of leadership. Yeah, really, in the age of AI, in the age of such uncertainty. What does it look like when we keep our humanity? And I also really getting into mentalism and magic. And so I'm still trying to figure out ways of incorporating my mentalism merchant skills into my keynote speeches and performances and things to really inspire people to realize the depths of their potential.
You know, I'm not sure I know what mentalism is exactly. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
It's mind reading.
Mind reading? Oh, okay.
No, well, you know, the field of mentalism is a sub-branch of magic that includes your ability to make predictions about what someone's going to think.
まあ結構真面目に話すとそうですよね。
And the ability to influence what they're going to think. Influence. So it's those three areas. Now, is the mind reading literally you're going in their brain, you're reading their thoughts? No, but there's deep, complex methods and various things that you combine to give the appearance of real mind reading and real magic. And at the end of the day, the most exciting thing is being able to create a sense of awe and wonder in people and let them see that things that seem impossible are actually possible. And that's the thing that excites me the most about the field of mentalism.
Oh, that's so cool. Will the podcast interviews continue to be available after the
Yes.
show?
The Psychology Podcast will still be available, the whole back catalog, and what happens to the feed and what happens next to the podcast will be revealed at some
いい
point.
こと言う。間違いない。
Well, Scott, it's been such a
ポジティブで
pleasure
す。す
talking
ご
to
く
you about your 11 years
素晴らしい
listening
で
to
す。
Psychology Podcast. I want to congratulate you on the achievement
ポジティブ
of
な
all these
人
years
間の
of
方が僕は好
important
きで
news
す。
that you've been bringing to people, and thank you for allowing me to be your first guest and your last guest. It's been a real honor.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for being my first and last guest of this
初見
iteration
初
of
見
life.
さんですね。
You know, you may be a guest.
I hope
You may,
so.
be you may be the first guest of something else.
Yeah.
you never know. Yeah, but you know, life
あ、でも
is a funny thing. It's simultaneously growth oriented and cyclical, if you know what I mean.
Well, the ascending spiral, that's the
Yes.
that's what I like. You keep returning to the same things, but hopefully at a more evolved
That's right.
level.
And that's you know, maybe some people argue that's multiple lives as well, and not just the point of this life.
焼
But
肉
that
さ
may
ん
take us to another realm for a different podcast.
焼肉さんとくまちゃんさんは 顔見知りなんだ。 で、くまちゃんさんがこのチャンネルの初見さんってことだ。
And I want to really thank the listeners who made it all possible for
Yes.
so many years, who've supported it. Yeah, my from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
なかなかなんかあれなんだね。
Yeah, making this podcast possible and do it all for
コ
you
メント
guys.
する人同士でもなんかいろいろつながりがあるんだね。全然わかんないわ。お、ユニックスさん、こんにちは。
You're listening to TED Talks Daily, where we bring you new ideas and conversations to spark your curiosity every day. I'm your host, Denise Hugh. For music mogul Jermaine Dupri, who you might know as the producer behind hits like Mariah Carey's We Belong Together and Usher's Nice and Slow, the magic of producing music is that you always start with nothing, with the seed of an idea, and yet you're able to build a song that people can feel and connect with. Jermaine took to the TED stage for a rapid-fire Q&A style talk to share his creative
掃除してました
process and why the city
部屋
that
の
shaped him, Atlanta, Georgia, in the U.S., matters so much to his work.
時々知り合いの配信にも出てる。出てるって顔出しして出てるってこと？そのコメントで出てるってこと？どういうこと？
It's almost like having a baby for me. Like, go in the studio and it's not an idea that, you know, most people be looking around the studio trying to figure out what we're gonna do. And then we get an idea, then we start making
いや、なんか見ましたよ。生き地獄チャンネル。都市ガス上がるみたいな。今さっき覗きましたけど。
But it's still, it's like making a baby. And it's not like making a baby, but you know. Yeah, so, but yeah, that's what it feels like though. It's like, that's how I feel when I make
いや、
music.
意味不明だから。
I watch it go from
中出し OK とか意味わかんないし。
something, and then I give it to you.
女なの？女じゃないでしょ。
So it's a trying process, but that's the one thing that I love about watching, you know, watching it grow from the bottom up. So
酔っ払い顔出しで出てます。へえ。 気になるな。 今度見てみようかな。なんてチャンネルかわかんないけど。
Alright, for anybody that's not from Atlanta, that's the South Side. That's where I come from. And I feel like Atlanta, when I first started making music with Criss Cross, and even earlier, in 91, 92, the whole city was building at this time. The music scene prior to me was here. We had like SOS Band, Brick, P.O. Bryson. Y'all know who y'all know who I'm talking about? Okay, make sure. Okay. So we had a cool music scene here, but it still was, you know, in the birth. And I just feel like my success came with the growth of the city. That's why I feel like I'm the mayor. I am the mayor, but yeah. But yeah, I feel like
いやなんかやっぱ焼肉さんあれですね、
city grow and they
め
came
ちゃ
to
く
the
ちゃ
city.
まともな人
And
ですよ
that's
ね。
why I created Welcome to Atlanta because I felt like
なんかやり取りの仕方とか見てるとすごいまともにな人しか見えない。
they used to have this shirt and they used to have hats and all of this, but they would have Detroit, LA, Tokyo, and London. Y'all remember these shirts? Oh, y'all don't.
いやなんかそのちゃんと礼儀みたいなのをわきまえてそうっていうか、なんかその失礼なこととかそういうのとかもなんか言わなそう。てかまあ大人って感じがします。大人って感じがします。ぜひ焼肉さんみたいな人になんかこう常にチャンネルにいてもらいたいですね。焼肉さんみたいな人がうまくなんかまとめてくれそう。
Okay, so my idea of making music is that once you get a hit, you have to follow whatever it was that you did to get to that hit. So like the first time that I did Jump, I don't know how I made it, but I made it, and you guys liked it. And then I started tracing back what I did to get to that song, and I realized that you can't. I couldn't really just like do exactly what I did to get to that song, but I had to find the little different things that the crowd liked or the people liked or what was really really interesting about the song. So say for instance like with Jump, the hook over and over again, Night Daddy will make you. So what I had to figure out is how do I make other songs that have that same lasting impression on people. And you have to, it's almost like baking a cake. I know I keep saying baking cake. Yeah, it's like, this is really like baking a cake because when you bake a cake, every time you bake the cake, you do basically the same things. Whether you put different icing on the cake, whether it's a lemon cake or it's a, red velvet cake, whatever it is, you go into baking that cake the same. And for me, when I go in the studio, without me telling the people that I'm in the studio with, I basically do some of the same things over and over again. I'm gonna give you an example. I had a little song that came out last year called "Made for Me." That was by Money Long. Y'all know that song? Yeah, it won a Grammy or something like that. But and in making the song, she called me one day and she was like, Jermaine, I think we made the song prior in the studio, and she was like, Jermaine, I think the beat needs to have a little bit more bounce to it. Now, my initial making of the beat, I didn't put this bounce that she's talking about in the record just because I don't try to make all my records sound the same. But I was watching TikTok when she sent the message to me, and I saw that they did a mashup of Mariah Carey and this artist named Yeet, and they put Yeet over top of We Belong Together, and these kids was dancing to the beat, and I'm like, oh okay. The people always try to make me seem like I'm old, but they got these young kids dancing to my beat.
豊かな生活がしたいですね。豊かな生活とはお金ですか、それとも自由ですか。人それぞれ違いますね。卵割れてるし。
Like making a cake, like I said, it's just something that you have to put in there, and if you see it happen one time, it can happen again. You just have to know how to grab it and catch it. Good at that. All right. How do I know what's cool? I'm gonna say I don't. I'm gonna say that I don't know what's cool. I just try.
今日まだ2時なんだ。
So we go back to like crisscross and I had
もう今月から俺夜勤とかがほぼほぼやんないからさ、
jumper, and the jumper was
結構昼間に動くことが多いんだよね。
right, and you could basically turn yourself around inside the jumper. And I said, you should put it on backwards. And you know, he looked at me like, what's wrong with you? And the other Chris looked at me like, yeah, what's wrong with you?
まあでも焼肉さんなんか人柄良さそう。
Why not, right? And this was before Jump came out. I was like, you just put it on backwards. And you know, I don't know why he did it, but he did it.
値札見ないで買い物したいの
And we
夢。
went to Lennox Square. And we walked through Lennox Square. I kid you not. The whole mall seemed like they saw
じゃ
something
あ
that
その夢は
they'd never seen before.
駄菓子屋に行けば叶うんじゃね？
Amazed because I'm like, this ain't nothing but he just put his jumper on backwards. But
駄菓子屋ぐらいだったらさ、値段見ないで買えんじゃね？
it was
なん
the
か
coolest thing that they had ever seen in their life. So
お金のこと気にしないで。
I don't know, but I'll try something that I believe somebody else is
そう
doing. And it normally
錦糸町とかにない？錦糸町のオリナスに駄菓子屋のなんか 店とかない？
what's next? What song do I want y'all to remember?
まああと俺地元は小岩なんですけど、小岩には駄菓子屋ありましたよ。中学校の時
I ain't made it yet, but
よく行ってましたよ俺。
I'm
豚麺とか食ってましたよよく。豚麺とかあとなんかペペロンチーノとか。 あの口っこいやつ。東京の下町には駄菓子屋あるでしょ。
So I would say we belong together. All right. Here's my lightning round. Hip hop or R&B. A fun fact is that I'm a real hip hop guy. I started out breakdancing and I hated R&B music, so I'm gonna go with hip hop. Working with legends or rising stars. I would say new stars would be my answer. Legends always got ego. Reality TV or docs. Because I have a new documentary.
毎月いくらぐらい飛び崩しをすれば
It's called
そして
Magic
どうやって
City.
飛び崩しを
It's on Stars. Yeah. All right.
していくか
Rhythm or melody.
そしてどうやって
I'm
飛び
going with the melody, or depending on how whatever I'm drinking it that night. It might be the rhythm, but the melody most of the time. Oh, who mentored me? Now I was mentored, I'm sure, by my father, but not really mentored for the music business. Just more or less showing me around and showing me how to be. And then I started watching other people from afar, like Teddy Riley, Quincy Jones, Barry Gordy, Andre
飛び
Harrell,
崩しをすればね
Russell Simmons. All of these guys, I just watched them from afar, and they basically are the ones that mentored me without me actually talking to them. I am a person that usually forecast things that
飛び崩
I
しを
want
す
to
れば
see
ね
happen in my life. And I saw this on YouTube one day, people up on stage talking at TED Talk, and I was like, I'm gonna do
そういった
that.
ことをやっぱり立てないといけない立てないといけない
And I'm here. Thank you.
That was Jermaine Dupri speaking at TED Next in 2025.
そういったことを
If you're curious about TED's curation, find out more at TED.com/curation guidelines. And that's it for today. TED Talks Daily is part of the TED Audio Collective. This talk was fact-checked by the TED research team and produced and edited by our team. Martha Estefanos, Oliver Friedman, Brian Green, Lucy Little, and Tansuka Salmarnivong. This episode was mixed by Christopher Facey Bogan. Additional support from Emma Tobner and Daniela Valarezo. I'm Elise Yu. I'll be back tomorrow with a fresh idea for your feed. Thanks for listening.
そしてもう最後はもう最後はもう取り崩しですよ
MLK Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin are household names. But what about their mothers? The work that they were doing even before their children arrived, of creating, of activism, was shaping our nation. and they deserve to be celebrated for that.
そして
On a
最
Malika
後はもう
Tubbs,
取り
the
組み
mothers who influenced American history. That's next time
最後は
on
もう
the
取り
TED
組み
Radio
して
Hour from
こ
NPR.
こまでよく考
Subscribe
え
or
て
listen
貯
to
め
the
て
TED
終わり
Radio Hour wherever you
こ
get
こまでよく考
podcasts.
えて貯めて終わりの人が多いんですね。
You're listening to TED Talks Daily, where we bring you new ideas to spark your
終わり
curiosity
の人が多
every
いんです
day.
ね。
I'm your host,
認可をしようが
Elise.
変更保険をしようが
For bioengineer Karsten Temme, it all starts with a simple jar of soil and the belief that the future of farming is already alive and well beneath our feet. In his talk, he shares how re-engineering microbes could allow us to replace much of the world's synthetic
変更保険を
fertilizer.
しようが
It would open up the huge potential to cut down on costs and environmental harm, all while increasing yields from large farms in the US and Brazil to the smallholder plots in Kenya and beyond.
This jar contains a few ounces of soil, but what you can't see is that it's teeming with life. The microbes inside are poised to become farmers' greatest tool and transform how we feed humanity. I'm Karsten Temme,
Nice.
the founder of Pivot Bio, and I have dedicated my career to studying these microbes. They can and will revolutionize agriculture. So from the plow
Dale.
to the grain combine, humans have invented tools to grow more on the same amount of land. Fertilizer is the greatest of these, all those nutrients that a plant combines with sunlight to grow. Here's an example. In the 1950s, American farmers produced 2,600 kilos of corn per
金持ちになろ
Today, there are yield competitions where the winners can generate more than 32,000 kilos on the same amount of land, in a large part because of the fertilizers they can use to fuel that crop. It's just amazing. But for all the good it does, fertilizer is an insignificant solution. Last year, farmers around the globe spent more than $200 billion on nitrogen fertilizers alone. They spray it on their fields and then pray that roots can find it before it's lost. Because if that fertilizer is lost, the crop can end up starved of its nutrients and stunted in its yields. Those losses also translate to unintended consequences. Some becomes nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas that's 265 times more potent than CO2. Some seeps into our groundwater, and some runs into our rivers and oceans, creating more than 500 dead zones around the planet. So there's gotta be a better way. And I'm here today to tell you that there is, and it's rooted in biology. You see, 78% of the air around us is nitrogen gas. That's a form that plants can't use.
これ頑張んねえとやべえよな
Nitrogen fixation. The microbes can breathe in that nitrogen gas and turn it into a form that plants can metabolize. It's a symbiosis, a partnership that's worked for millions of years, right up until the point that humans started breeding crops to be more productive. Those bigger yields needed more nutrients, and fertilizer was invented to fill the gap. Well, microbes in response shut down that nitrogen-fixing function, putting those genes into hibernation. What if we could wake them back up? What if we could use modern tools like gene editing to bring those microbes back to being specialized helpers for farmers? Then we could have a way for those microbes to live with the plant alongside the roots, sensing the crop's nutrient needs and responding in real time. Well, that's a challenge that I set out to pursue 2 decades ago, along with my friend, labmate and co-founder Al. We made it our mission to get those genes working again. So here's how that went.
モチベーションいいですね
From farms across the United States. We extracted the microbes. We reprogrammed their DNA.
いいじゃん焼肉屋でなんか一発当てたらいいじゃないですか
Then one day in the lab, we saw
焼肉王とかになっちゃうじゃないですか俺は焼肉王になる
our microbes were living
世界中日本一の焼肉屋になる
and sharing it with that test. That test tube represented a breakthrough. We had shown that we could create microbes that could sense and respond to the plant's nutrient needs in real time. We thought we had just solved agriculture. Well, spoiler alert, not quite.
そしたら俺食いに行き
For
ま
the
すよ
last 15 years, we have been working to transform this
焼肉さんに会いに行き
into a
ますよ
system that serves farmers on 3 continents today. I believe that across the next decade, we can help farmers reduce
焼肉さんの知り合いなんですよ
they need. So what I wanted to do is take you on a quick little journey to meet 3 of the farmers that are using these microbes right now. So meet John. He's a corn farmer farmer in Michigan who runs a 1,295-hectare farm. Now, it's a complex operation, and he's got a lot of variables to manage, so he doesn't need any more. John's turned to pivot for the last 5 years to simplify his life. Each year, we've sent him a little less than 4 kilograms of freeze-dried powdered microbes, and he's coated the seeds with the microbes, planted them as normal. Once in the ground, those microbes have gone to work. They eat sugars from the crop, they fix nitrogen and share it back with the plants. And then when the crop's harvested, those microbes die, ensuring they only do what we intend. Now they're operating at the cutting edge, alongside satellite mapping and soil monitoring, slow-release fertilizers and precision machinery. It means that yields at John's farm have boomed. His dad regularly applied more than 225 kilos of nitrogen fertilizer per hectare and generated about 8,500 kilos of corn. Today, John's able to apply less than 140 kilos of fertilizer and yields have risen to 11,500 kilos on that same land. It's amazing, and what it gives me the most pride is that our microbes are helping make his job easier while increasing his bottom line profitability. And John's not alone. Our microbes have been used on as much as 5% of the U.S. corn crop. So if you'll zoom with me about 7,000 kilometers south, I'd like to introduce you to Charles. Now, Charles runs a large farm in Brazil. Brazil is an agricultural powerhouse. It's one of the world's top 3 corn producers. Yet, yields average just about 6,000 kilos per hectare, so there's a lot of room for upside improvement. One of the biggest limiting factors is nitrogen fertilizer. Brazil imported more than 80% of its nitrogen fertilizers last year, and that's something it's looking to reverse through microbes, both with us and others. So Pivot's been working with the Ministry of Agriculture, testing and adapt our product ahead of commercial sales. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a look in Charles' farm, where he's counting on those microbes to supply about 30 kilos of nitrogen, alongside 120 kilos of nitrogen fertilizer he's applying every acre. That's about 25% less than we normally would use. Now the crop's a couple weeks away from harvest. What you'll see is the plants are larger, greener, they're healthier, they've got bigger root systems. All that sets up the crop to be more resilient in the face of an unpredictable climate. It also means that's a bigger factory for producing higher yields at better profitability. This is a boon for Charles's operation. It's also an opportunity for Brazil to have strategic independence, because these microbes can be brewed like beer close to the farm. That means no more reliance on foreign chemicals or global supply chains. We're also working in Kenya, and every morning Margaret wakes at 4 a.m.
真面目に仕事するから配信曲かな。というわけで超真剣に仕事します。ありがとうございました。いつも聞いてくれる人ありがとうございます。
All it takes is one rainstorm, and that investment is washed away.